divide, create conflict over serving the greater good of life. Remember that your consciousness is its content. You can always tell where your consciousness is based on the content of your thoughts and your feelings and your actions. It's all of your beliefs, all the dogmas, all the rituals you engage in, all the reactions you have, the attachments you have, the anxieties and fears you have, the sorrows, the aspirations, the images you've built regarding yourself and other people, all of your conclusions, all of your prejudices, all of your likes, all of your dislikes. So just ask the simple question: does my belief system support all life and the greater good of all, or does my belief system advantage one or a few at the expense of the many? Personal gain, of course, being the objective. And note that withholding the truth for personal gain is equivalent to a blatant lie or the distortion of the truth. And this happens from our parents, from our culture, from our religions, from our media. It's based in capitalism and our educational system. Remember that everything that is egoic will equal karmic debt.
You know, I just want to make another side note, because at our seminar last year,
Last year?
You're
going
last
way back
month.
in time.
I'm sorry. Last month, it was just so fun because it was a sold out group, so we were all very connected in there. And somebody made the point about you had abbreviated on one of the PowerPoint slides about belief system as you abbreviated it as BS. It was such a hilarity because it really is kind of that point. It becomes the BS of our life. So, what keeps the ego so much in place? I mean, what ignites the ego?
We're talking about juicing the ego. What's the ego juice? What's the fuel it runs on? Excuse me. Well, it runs on your emotionality. That extreme, and it doesn't even have to be extreme, it's that reactivity of emotions. It's that need to be right. It's that need to get even with somebody who you believe have done you wrong, which of course is a huge distortion. It's, listen carefully, it's feeling sorry for yourself. Oh, that's the saddest story I ever heard. It's clinging to negativity and some slavish bondage, like to a bad relationship, an unfulfilling career or job. It's doing that stuff and then saying, why me, oh poor me. It's that need to seek validation from others or social approval from others. It's that self-inflating positionality we take, or that sense of pseudo-importance we take. All juicing, all ego juicing is found in the lower levels of consciousness and in our wounded psychology.
So again, for our listeners, because a lot of them may have not been exposed yet to a lot of the teachings here, levels of consciousness, would you just give a quick understanding of that?
Well, when we look at human behavior and human consciousness, now first we have to, this gets to be a huge question. First we start with the knowledge that consciousness is the basis of all that exists within the universe. Before the Big Bang, before all things were set in motion, there was consciousness. You can call that God consciousness, quantum consciousness, universal consciousness. You can call it source. You get it?
Yes.
It's all the same, all very much the same. Consciousness existed before all things, and it's consciousness that permeates the universe. It encompasses everything.
Okay.
And if we really talked about how deep consciousness goes, it would blow your mind in so many ways.
It'd blow the BS out of me.
So remember, anytime you're looking for specialness, get that? Anytime you're looking for specialness,
that's hard on us,
you
NX.
are juicing the ego.
Yeah.
When you have that attraction to form, you've just got to look a certain way, and if you don't look just that particular way, you feel somehow inadequate. You're juicing your ego. If you have this great fear of death, If you have put survival above all things, including how you treat other people, that's your ego getting juiced. If you spend excessive time avoiding bad feelings, avoiding introspection, and you know how you can do this, substances, behaviors, all kinds of things, TV will help you avoid bad feelings. If you are pursuing needs, wants, and desires, you have focus on your body, you have focus on materialism, those are all things about specialness, and we get caught up in comparing ourselves to others. That's all ego juicing.
I'm just having this fantasy during this political season. I wish so much our politicians had to have a course in consciousness. I think it would really change a lot of things. I guess that's going to be a book of yours someday, huh?
Well, that likely wouldn't be true because they're caught in their own level of consciousness.
Gotcha.
And so I'm realizing I never answered your question about what's this level of consciousness stuff. All humanity can be put in a hierarchical system, and Dr. David Hawkins created the map of consciousness.
Yay, Dr.
That is such a wonderful form of understanding that there are levels of consciousness, and each is based in our understanding and belief system about the world, about self, God, our feelings, our thoughts, the whole picture. It's all included in our level of consciousness. So, for example, if we're operating at a level of consciousness of shame, then everything that we look at is from that perspective. And it can go from one extreme to another, from I'm absolutely worthless and not worth any care or regard, all the way to the aggrandizement of the narcissistic core of the ego, where I know all right from wrong, and I'm going to tell you, and I become the sin and salvation merchant. So it's the extremes where ego lives, and we've got to be clear, which is far different than if we're at a level of, say, acceptance, where we accept that the quality of our life is on us. No other forces, no other possibilities out there. It's on us. It's not luck, it's effort. It's not getting stuck in a belief system, it's change when change is appropriate. Which then, of course, is not quite as high as coming from a position of love. And in that position of love, which of course is how each and every one of us was given life, when we come from a position of love, then what we're doing is we're looking for the greater good of all. We understand that we are all interconnected. There is no separation. The separation we see is an illusion. It's based on the limitations of our sensory organs and our brain. There is no separateness. So at a position of love, we start to get this. And then above that are the states of enlightenment. And it's really interesting. I was reading some article. I can't even remember which one it was now. And there was some guru out there, supposed learned person who likens themselves to be enlightened. And with this statement, you will understand that they are not. They said, oh, there is no such thing as levels of enlightenment. But of course there is. There are different understandings, and each one brings you closer and closer to the consciousness of God. So be clear. This is a progressive developmental process. You won't be left out, but what you need to do is go through the process of learning, of applying, and then becoming. And you do that process over and over and over again.
Practice.
Practice.
I like that statement about, and you will not be left out. That's very nice to hear.
It's inclusive. Think about it. The consciousness that gave us all life is going to pick some of us to be less than? No, of course not. It's just a developmental process.
And for our audience, I want to give that reference. So you had mentioned Dr. David Hawkins, who we consider our mentor, our teacher, in introducing consciousness in his book, Power versus Force. And it's David Hawkins, Hawkins, MD, PhD. Are there societies, by the way, just off the top of your head, are there cultures, are there countries that have high levels of consciousness in their leadership?
Well, this is going to shock most of you, but America is one of the higher ones.
Really?
But there are, yes.
I'm just not feeling it today.
Based on the last few years, I can see why you would doubt that. But anyway.
Yeah. So this does all get quite big and complex. what suggestions then do you have for our audience today?
Well, here's an easy way to kind of reduce some of the complexity, because so much of this can get overwhelming. So let's reduce complexity now. Let's take a two-prong approach. And the first prong is you have to deal with your psychology. You have to deal with understanding the self that you are. Because without doing that, how are you going to maximize yourself? Right? All you're going to do is doubt yourself. So the first thing is resolve your psychology. Now remember, this is progressive, and it's found in the wounds, and those wounds are found in our temperament and in our development. So look at all those misguided, misinterpreted, misrepresented lessons that led to your feelings of shame and fear that we carry from our childhood, and correct it in the moment. And how do you correct it in the moment? Well, you got to have awareness. You have to be mindful, of course. But anything that you think, anything that you feel, and any actions you engage in that does not align with life and the advancement or the development of the self, that is based in ego, and that's what you want to correct. So if I'm thinking negative thoughts about other people, I want to reel that one back in.
Okay.
And I reel that back in by taking a position of neutrality.
Oh, neutrality, our friend neutrality.
Yes. The second prong, then, is developing the spiritual self. And there are people out there who are going to teach you that all you need to do is develop the spiritual self. But the truth is, if you don't resolve your psychology and integrate that into the process, you're not going to grow. All you're going to learn are concepts, and then you're going to go around hurting people. So in aligning our life, then, with spirituality and a higher self, align all that we do with our spiritual path through a process of mindfulness and consciousness, keeping your spiral of growth moving upward while simultaneously dealing with unconscious interference and influences. That's that psychology part. This allows us to live according to increasing levels of truth, as opposed to living according to belief systems and approval and looking for authority to tell us how to be, what to do, how to think.
So, what are substitutions for reality?
All of these things are substitutions for reality. Absolutely. Look, for example, some of us substitute our emotions for reality. How do we do that? Because I feel it, therefore it must be true. So if I have fear in me, then whatever it is in my context that has brought up this fear, I make that person or that thing dangerous. That's not necessarily true. That's called projection. Or here's another one. We substitute the intellect for truth. And this is a big one for all of you who are really much more oriented towards your thinking. You believe because you have some system or understanding of belief. Maybe even you think it's based in science. Therefore, you're not going to change when new information comes along.
Okay.
So people get bogged down, say, in the physical realms of physics and believe that that's all there is. And they ignore all the additions, all the insights, all of the extra information we have from quantum physics. You can't have just one without the other. You embrace all things. Even the Dalai Lama and the Pope are now saying that if science teaches us something new that contradicts what we believe, it's us that have to change. But it's ego that digs its heels in and says, no, change threatens us. Or here's another one. We substitute authority for truth. Remember, the ego utilizes authority, including itself, to be right. And remember, it'll let you die in order to be right. And there's the basis of war. We go to war to prove our rightness, not to promote life, but to be right. War is egoic, and we've got to be clear. Fighting, conflict is egoic. We have to understand this. So we understand then that life is complex, that the walk of life is multifaceted, and that if you want to reduce the complexity of life, raise your consciousness.